Girl, let me go ahead and lubricate my throat real quick. Because the amount of yapping that I'm about to do, y'all are not ready. Hey, corillo, welcome back to my channel. I'm Nemesis and I create curly hair content here on YouTube, plus beauty and fitness content as well over on Instagram and on TikTok. So you know what you gotta do with that information. But all right, as per usual, before we get into the video, let's talk about the song of the moment. Listen, once again, I am very much disconnected from new music. I'm just listening to my comfort music over and over on repeat. So today I just want to highlight one of my favorite comfort artists slash groups. I'm talking about Los Rivera Destino. They're very popular on the internet for taking classic reggaeton songs and turning them into more traditional Latin sounds. They're so freaking cool, but their original music is also so incredible. One of my favorite songs is Foto de Perfil. So freaking good. Listen, I love them and I'm so excited because I'm gonna see them for the second time in May here in New York. Okay, let's carry on. All right, you saw the title of today's video. You know what we're about to get into. Welcome to episode 2 of my new YouTube series, Maybe It Is That Deep, where we get to dive into hair and beauty topics that may seem simple on the surface, but upon further inspection, maybe they are that deep. Do y'all remember the TikTok phenomenon of the copy-paste Latina? If you missed this chapter in internet history, let me explain. The copy-paste Latina was a makeup trend inspired by this specific type of makeup look. To me, it kind of looks like 2016 makeup minus the crazy cut crease or like the crazy chunky highlighter. It's way more matte and not very colorful at all. And for some reason, this was the look associated with Latina baddies on the internet. That's why it was named the copy-paste Latina look. That is an insane name in itself. Like, what do you mean copy-paste? But when you zoom out, look at the bigger picture, yeah, it kind of looks like they have like a copy-paste face because of how the makeup look makes them look. But I do remember that when this trend was at its peak, I fucking hated it because it only showcased one type of Latina, like one archetype of what a Latina looks like. And it generalized what Latina women look like. That's crazy. Like, girl, we don't all have long, straight black hair, a fair complexion, and a tiny little nose. But actually, now that I say that, little side note, the face of that trend, this freaking girl, that was a fully white woman. Like, I'm not saying like a white Latina. No. I'm saying that's a Caucasian cosplaying as a Latina. And that shit is hilarious. Like, how y'all named this the copy-paste Latina and that's not even a Latina? Anyways, I digress. Later in the trend lifespan, South Asian women started joining in the trend and recreating this makeup look, but on their beautiful brown features. And girl, let me tell you, they ate. They ate this trend down. So then I came around to it too. And then I also did the trend, but without straightening my curls. And this is gonna be relevant in a second. And then that kind of led me into this rabbit hole, thinking about the fact that honestly, most people in this country do have a very narrow perception of what Latinx women look like. Most people, when they think of Latinx women, they picture more or less the same archetype: fair or olive skin, straight long hair, Spanish/Italian facial features, and a slim but curvy body. But why? Like, why that specific? Why do they think that when we know that Latin America does not have a homogeneous population? Well, in today's video, I want to talk about that public perception, how we even got there, the erasure of curly and coily hair in Latin America, and how that same curly and coily hair is perceived within Latin American communities, since hair is still such a big point of contention within families, friend groups, the workplace, schools. Does Latin America still look down on curly hair? If you know even the slightest bit about world history and colonization, you probably already know that wherever Europeans stepped foot to pillage and steal and spread disease, to this day, you can still feel the effects of all the damage they freaking caused. And with all the violence and destruction that they brought into this side of the world, most specifically in Latin America, they also brought their own ideas of beauty, femininity, and desirability. But it wasn't just here. That same Eurocentric beauty standard reached every corner of the world where those motherfuckers knocked their way into. And boy, is it still doing a number on us. For those of you who might not be as familiar, the Eurocentric beauty standard only considers those with a lighter complexion, straight hair, small nose and lips, a tall and slim body type, and light colored eyes to be the epitome of beauty and femininity and desirability. And in Latin America, that standard is very much still alive and well and flourishing, no matter how much some people try to deny it. Like, please, just take a look at every single love interest in every telenovela that has ever existed. The closer you can get to whiteness and or the Eurocentric beauty standard, the higher the chances you'll be considered beautiful, you'll be taken more seriously in the workplace, and you'll more likely be given opportunities that Black and brown Latinas have to work twice or thrice or 10 times as hard to be able to access. Sounds very similar to the US, Europe, Asia, etc. Girl, it's a sickness. After all, as Dr. Fitz quotes in this article for Refinery 29, one of the strongest links between Latinas and African Americans in the US is our shared experience with colorism and the politics of hair. And among the countless ways in which brown and Black Latina people tried their best to conform to said beauty standard, straightening their curls and their coils became almost like a norm. Like, it's the expected thing for you to do. And so the expression pelo malo emerged. For those of you lucky enough to have never heard that expression or not know what it means, pelo malo literally translates to bad hair, and it refers to curly, coily, or textured hair. More specifically, coarser hair that refuses to straighten. The tighter or coarser the curl, the more bad it is. Más malo es, más crispy, más difícil, etc. Many of us from Latin America have our own traumatic stories in relation to that expression. You might have heard that expression being thrown at you or at other people around you, or maybe even loved ones. In my case, I used to hear that expression being thrown at my mother all the time. Okay, I'm gonna share a little personal anecdote, and I'm gonna do my best to not get emotional, but I make no promises. My beautiful mother has type 4 curls, and for as long as I can remember, she hated it. She hated her hair. But of course, she wasn't born hating her own hair. This is something that was taught to her by her mother, and her mother learned it from her mother, and her mother learned it from her mother. You know, and then the cycle continued. My grandmother, who I love and miss every single day of my life, unfortunately did take my mother to go chemically straighten her hair almost on a weekly basis from a very early age. Listen, looks matter a lot within Latin culture, and there's no way she was gonna let her daughter go out like that with that bad hair of hers, so she had to fix it. This was quickly internalized by my mother as self-hatred, and it wasn't until she reached her very late 50s that she finally started breaking the cycle and learning how to embrace her natural curls and coils. And not to give myself all the credit, but I most definitely helped her get there. She was definitely one of my biggest sources of inspo when I started posting about my hair journey. She helped me get here, and I helped her get here. And I love that for her, and I love that for us. But I need you to really put yourself in her shoes and really think of the psychological damage that this expression, pelo malo, made on her self-esteem and her self-image and her self-worth for 50 fucking years. That shit breaks my heart. But that is the exact same story and experience of countless women in Latin America. However you call it in your country, pelo churrusco in Panama or Colombia, pelo crespo en Argentina, pelo malo en Puerto Rico y la República Dominicana, or pelo chinito in Mexico. The idea and the sentiment remains the same. As Puerto Rican celebrity hairstylist David Lopez and fellow mutual of mine said in this same article by Refinery 29, I don't remember a time when I didn't hear that curly hair was undesirable. And even though the standard of beauty predominantly affected women, men and boys also kind of felt the effects of it. As Lopez stated, to my family, how you presented yourself aesthetically to the world was super important. So I knew early on that my dark curly hair was a curse waiting to take over my life. See exactly how it happened to my mom. This disdain of Afrocentric features like curly and coily hair was almost inescapable in Latin America. And of course, just like many other topics, even the mainstream media had a big role to play in it. Growing up in Latin America, more specifically in the 90s and 2000s, the faces that you would see on television kind of all looked similar-ish. I wouldn't say they looked like copy-paste, as TikTok would say, but clearly there was a bias towards who gets to be on TV and other media forms and who wasn't. And this, of course, applies to Latin America and the US. In my case, I grew up in Puerto Rico, and these were the faces that I would see all the time on my grandparents' TV. They were all lighter-skinned Latinas. And not to mention, there wasn't a single curl or coil in sight. Thinking about it, there was one exception that I would see regularly on like a late night local television show. And it was this lady right here. She's known as La Burbu. And she is very well known for her big, beautiful curly hair. But I remember that when I was growing up, yes, she was considered beautiful to the general public, but her hair was almost like a ha la pelúa. It's not like she was just like a beautiful woman on television. She was like the woman with the big hair. Like she was treated almost like a character instead of a person. But there's this other story that has a more inspiring tone to it. There is this beautiful news anchor in Puerto Rico that I grew up watching like almost every single day. Her name is Yvonne Soya. And for as long as I could remember, she always showed up like this, gracing that desk in Telemundo. She has been a journalist since like the 70s, and she was one of, if not the first Afro-descendant Puerto Rican woman to grace that desk in Telemundo. But it wasn't until way later in her career, she said around the 2010s, that she stopped straightening her hair as often. But still, this is how she would show up to work every single day. And then the pandemic started, but she still had to show up at work to report the news. And in the middle of all of that happening, she posted this picture onto social media, finally wearing her natural curls for the first time on set. She expressed this wasn't even intentional. This happened because, well, the usual hair and makeup team wasn't able to be on set because of the pandemic. So she had no other option but to show up with her natural curls. What she couldn't have anticipated is how impactful that image actually became. And Edison expressed under her post, "You look more beautiful and even younger. You should wear your hair like this more often. I love it." Followed by someone else saying, "Leave it natural more often. Use it as a way to empower other women." And empower she did. She had no idea this was gonna happen, but she actually sparked a very well-needed conversation around inclusion and diversity within local media. And moving forward, this is how she shows up at work now, like with her beautiful freaking curls, looking healthier than ever, by the way. And later, she went on to be recognized as one of the 45 change makers in the Caribbean by L'Oreal Group, and still continues to speak on the need for better inclusion of Afro-Caribbean people in media and beyond. She expressed in an interview with Etnica magazine, "My hope is that when little girls and boys turn on the TV and they see me on air, they feel like they can also dream, they can also aspire, and that they can also accomplish their goals." I absolutely love her story, and it hits even closer to home because I remember when this happened, and I remember my mom's reaction to it. Like, she was generally so happy and excited for her, as if she knew her in real life. I feel like that low-key healed her a little bit. My mom. But of course, this is a very rare case in Latin America. Countless and countless amounts of boys and girls grew up without any representation in their own local media, and with little to no support within their own families. And no other piece of media explores that as deeply as is explored in the critically acclaimed Venezuelan film Pelo Malo. Girl, when I found out that there's a movie called Pelo Malo, I feel like it finally sunk in how deeply rooted this freaking problem was. Like, if there's a film called that, that's how big of a freaking deal it was in Latin America, and honestly still is. Listen, this movie, it broke me. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. Pelo Malo was released in 2014, and it tells the story of a very complicated and strange mother-son relationship in the trenches of the housing projects in Caracas, Venezuela. The mother, Marta, was recently widowed and has 2 children under her care. A baby that's just a few months old and a 9-year-old called Junior. Actually, now that I think about it, Junior isn't even a name. That's just what you call someone who is the son of somebody else. Okay, so from the get-go, you can tell that this woman hates the living shit out of her kid. She hates him. She doesn't want anything to do with him. By the way that she looks at him, treats him, and talks to him, you can tell she hates him. And as the movie progresses, you realize that the main source of her hatred for him is her suspicion that her son might be gay. Why, you ask? Because Junior has an obsession with straightening his hair. Pelo Malo, as he calls it. More specifically, he wants to straighten his curly hair to resemble his favorite singer-songwriter, Henry Steven. He is such a sweet kid that genuinely loves music. He loves to sing, he loves to dance, and unfortunately, he does spend a lot of time looking at himself in the mirror, trying to straighten his hair with a comb, tries to do it with food. He goes above and beyond trying to do it himself, and every single time his mom catches him, oh my God, all hell breaks loose. He also sees how his mother really loves the baby way more than him. And even though it's a baby, yeah, you can tell that the main difference between them two is that the baby has a lighter complexion, has like a full head of straight hair. There's a very notable difference between the brothers. And I mean, obviously, as a kid, you see that and you're like, damn, maybe if I looked more like my little brother, maybe my mom will actually like me. I don't know. Also, the environment he was growing up in, there was so much violence going on around him. And he was also teased by like the kids growing up around him for his dark complexion and his pelo malo. So he was hated by his mother. He was made fun of by the people around him. And he also didn't feel represented in media at all. The closest thing he had was Henry Steven, who was another dark-skinned man, but even he had to straighten his hair. So of course he reached the conclusion in his little child mind that all he had to do was straighten his hair and then he would be loved. But instead, he ended up having to conform against his own will to the societal standard, to the standard of masculinity that was predominant in that point in time. It was a heartbreaking ending, and the film's writer actually received a lot of critiques for writing such a dark freaking movie with such a bummer ending. But in her defense, it was real. It very much showed the reality of thousands and thousands of little boys and girls growing up in Latin America and being forced to conform to whatever standard the country is setting at that point. Whether it is a standard of beauty, a standard of femininity, a standard of masculinity, a standard of class. Like, girl, yeah, that's how violent conforming to these standards looks like. It just hit people really, really hard to see it from the POV of a child. But it's real. And I think having the film called Pelo Malo perfectly shows how such a damaging expression can cause someone from a very early age to start seeing themselves as less than. This horrible lack of representation in media that upholds the Eurocentric beauty standard can make it even harder for curly-haired people to see themselves as worthy of the visibility that everyone else gets to have. Okay, I know that got a little bit sad and dark, I'm sorry. But in this very last section of the video, I want to focus more on like the progress that has been made towards inclusion and diversity of curly hair in Latin America and here in the US as well. In my opinion, it's predominantly millennials, Gen Z, zillennials, and Gen Alpha who are, for the most part, finally rejecting that Pelo Malo mindset. And I would say it's thanks, at least in part, to social media exposure. These generations said, okay, you guys are not gonna represent us well on media, on like TV, movies, magazines, etc. Okay, we're gonna start recording ourselves then, and we're gonna start posting ourselves then. And that exposure of like seeing more and more people with curly hair, learning how to take care of their curly hair, and teaching others how to take care of their curly hair has started this whole movement and community that maybe wasn't as easily accessible before. I mean, that's exactly what this channel is, a community of curly, wavy haired people wanting to learn how to take care of their natural hair, looking for product reviews, helping each other out, and unlearning things that were maybe taught to us earlier in life. I am incredibly happy and proud of the community that I have built here and on my other platforms, especially as a Latina who is actively rejecting that whole mindset of Pelo Malo. But other Latinas have taken it a step further and created successful brands and businesses that reject that Pelo Malo mindset and actively encourage other Latinas to accept, love, embrace, and learn how to take care of their hair. Here in the US, we have our Mexican queen, Miss Julissa Prados, who is the founder of Rizo's Curls. We love, we stand, we have been with her and with Rizo's Curls from the beginning in this channel. Aisha Ceballos Crump of Puerto Rican descent has also created an incredible brand of curly hair products inspired by her kids' curls and coils, and it's called Honey Baby Naturals. Nicole and Cori Varona, two Dominican sisters, have also created a gorgeous curly hair centered brand called Ocoa, which by the way is so freaking good. Like every single product, 10 out of 10. Carolina Contreras, another Dominican diva, has created not just a brand of curly hair products. Editing Nemesis here with an update. I believe that Carolina's brand, Miss Rizos, is either going through some type of rebrand or a pause, or maybe it's discontinued because she's no longer selling products on her website. But what I'm about to talk about is still going on, is still alive and well. But her own curly hair salon. She has a location in the Dominican Republic, and in 2019, she opened her second location right here in Nueva York, more specifically in Washington Heights. And similarly, more and more of these curly hair salons have opened up all across Latin America, which is of course a great sign towards inclusion of curly and textured hair. And by the way, if you are watching me from Latin America and you know of curly hair salons in your specific countries or cities, please drop them in the comments below with your country's flag, just so that other Latina curlies can find them too. In the description, I'll include the ones that I know from here in New York and in Puerto Rico. I love the existence of curly hair salons. I love the existence of curl specialists. But if I may take a quick tangent again, I think it's very, very insane that in these beauty schools where hairstylists and hairdressers go to learn and train, curly hair styling is not really part of the regular curriculum. And listen, if this has changed and I am way off, please correct me. But the reason why I'm saying this is because I've personally heard it from other hairstylists in the community. And even my very first curly hair specialist that gave me my very first curly cut explained to me that in order for her to become a curly specialist, she had to take classes independently from her beauty school. Like, there was no way that she would have been able to become what she is now if she had just done their classes. She even had to reach out to other curly specialists to take her under their wing and kind of like teach her their ways and their techniques, because the education was just not there in these freaking schools. Like, girl, that shit makes no sense to me. What do you mean? This is a hair school. How are you excluding such a big chunk of the population? I think the only thing that they teach about curly hair is how to straighten it. And even freaking then, there have been countless stories of Black and brown actresses, singers, and models having to either do their own hair or having to look freaking crazy because the hairstylists on set don't know how to deal with their hair.
Have you ever noticed how many Black women in high fashion have buzz cuts? If you have, you're not making things up. This is a documented practice within the fashion industry, with fashion insiders confirming that Black models with short hair are preferable. But why is this? For many years, Black models have spoken out about their treatment backstage, with hairstylists often avoiding Black models because they don't know how to manage their hair, or worse, doing their hair and completely ruining it, or making racist comments like these. So after years of critique and demand for stylists that actually know how to work with Black hair textures, it seems the response is to not do their hair at all. Fashion's current intrigue into dark-skinned models is promising, but is representation really a win if the knowledge required for our hair is not being catered to? Moreover, it's important to remember the implications of shaving women's hair. In the West, the practice being associated with punishment, and in Africa, some women shave their hair when they become widows. As beautiful as these models are and how important it is to celebrate their space in the industry, when do we begin to critique the fetishism that's clearly coming into play? There's an incredible article with insight from real models on the Black Ballad website right now.
Like, that's crazy. Thankfully, curly hair stylists now exist, and I believe that even regular hairstylists are starting to kind of like get a grip and also learn how to deal with textured hair, but still it's just very frustrating. But anyways, I want to end this little section of the video by highlighting some of the other curly hair Latinas that I follow and also inspire me to be a better creator and continue advocating for Latinas that look like us. And please, if you have your own curly hair Latina creators that you follow in your countries or here in the US, please drop them in the comments. We want to follow, we want to see their content. First off, we have the Dominican and Colombian baddie herself, Miss Daviana. I'm sure you already know who she is, but just in case, go follow her. She creates beautiful curly hair content and a lot of like lifestyle and beauty stuff as well. One of my personal favorites, Puerto Rican queen herself, Carla Bejaran, creates beauty, lifestyle, and hair content on Instagram and on TikTok. Peruvian cutie herself, Lucero Tanque, also shares wavy curly hair tips, and she has a very similar hair texture to mine, so if you're also wavy curly, please go follow her as well. Dominican and Ecuadorian doll, Jaire Ciprian. I think it's Jaire or Jairi. Regardless, she's gorgeous, amazing, and creates a lot of like curly hair content, and she's also a mom of 2 boys, I think. Haitian and Honduran bombshell Miss Ashley Mass creates beautiful curly hair content and a lot of like lifestyle and travel stuff. And finally, Salvadorian beauty queen Miss Erika Ramirez. She makes curly hair tutorials, curly hairstyle tutorials, product reviews, and makeup looks. There's so many out there, and I hope that more and more keep appearing and taking up space online and in real life. Whew, Lord, that was a lot of talking. So, does Latin America still look down on curly hair? I would say yes. I would say yes, absolutely, but not to the extent that it once did. So much progress has been made towards the right direction, and it's all thanks to the brown and black, curly and coily haired women in Latin America who have stood their ground, 10 toes down, resisting, and you could even say rebelling against the Eurocentric beauty standard that has had the strongest chokehold on Latin America since the days of colonization. I believe with each generation passing, texturism has become less and less relevant. I mean, in my household, the Pelo Malo expression is never used, ever. Not even in my family's household. So, I mean, that's gonna mean something. I even think there's curly and coily kids out there who have never even heard that expression before. And I love knowing that, okay? Listen, centuries of colonialism and Eurocentrism won't go away in just a couple of years. It's gonna keep taking a lot of time and work, like active work, to get rid of those notions of femininity and beauty and blah, blah, blah. There will always be forces trying to push us backwards instead of progressing. I mean, take a look at this country. I even briefly spoke about it in my previous video when talking about the rise of the clean girl being low-key connected to the rise of fascism in this country. So yeah. But I still believe that the progress we've made will not go in vain. Curly and coily Latina people will continue to resist. All right, and with that, we've reached the end of the video. Lord, this was a roller coaster of emotions. But if you watched all the way to the end, I freaking love it. Please tell me your thoughts. I am so intrigued by what you think about this topic. If you are a Latina person, have you encountered any of the scenarios that I mentioned in this video? Or were you not aware of any of this shit at all? I don't know. And if you are not from Latin America, what do you think? Like, did you know that any of this shit was going on? Were you aware of the cultural weight it carried for generations in Latin America? How would you say it compares to like the natural hair journey here in the US? Let me know. What's tea? What's tea? Also, if you want to keep up with me between uploads, please feel free to follow me on Instagram at NemesisMarie06 or on TikTok at NemesisMarie_06. But most importantly, girly pop, have a great rest of your day.